and voting is underway here in this great Palmetto State. Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, they were crisscrossing the state all throughout the week and last night giving their final pitch. Here's what Trump was talking about. He was mentioning what's at stake here. Listen.
There's never been a more important time. Tomorrow you will cast one of the most important votes of your entire life. And honestly, we're not very worried about tomorrow. We want to aim toward a time called November 5th. That's what we need, November 5th. Got to beat crooked Joe Biden if it's going to be him. I don't know if he's going to make it to the starting gate.
Uh-oh. I'm losing IFB. All right, we are here with Senator Lindsey Graham. Thank you so much for being with us, Senator.
Thank you.
So primaries today.
Today.
Can you believe we've talked about it for so long now? Here we are. So,
praise God.
That's right. So what really resonates with the South Carolina voter?
Who can beat Biden? Who can turn around America? Everybody in here has a couple things in common. They love our country. They think we're going in the wrong direction. And I like Nikki. I've known Nikki a long time. I'm voting for Trump, not against her. But I'll tell you this, if you win the South Carolina primary, you're going to be the Republican nominee.
That's true. Usually that's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
Why is it? Because a lot of people I'm talking to really like Nikki, and they like what she's done for the state. They love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
There are a few Nikki Haley supporters here. Why is it that both senators and our governor here in South Carolina are supporting Trump versus the former governor, Nikki Haley?
I endorsed Trump before he got through the speech. And let me tell you why. I didn't know Nikki was going to run. I loved him. I love Nikki. I just believe Donald Trump is the right guy at the right time. I had a front row seat for 4 years, and I saw what he was able to do. Everybody says, I like Trump policies. I want somebody new. There are no Trump policies without Donald Trump. That's just a fact.
Right.
The Chinese were afraid of him. Mexico saw what he did to China and said, yes, we'd be glad to help you with the illegal immigrant problem. When he was president, we were producing energy. We were energy independent. He had the back of the cops, and all the bad guys were afraid of him. He killed Soleimani in Iran and put him in a box. He was tough commander-in-chief. He had the troops' backs. He rebuilt the military and didn't get us in any wars. So the reason I'm for Trump, I think he's been the best president in my lifetime since Ronald Reagan, and I think he deserves another shot. And what they're trying to do to him and his family is a bunch of BS.
We have one more question about this state and the election. You and I were talking earlier, and you have a theory about why Nikki Haley's staying in the race.
Listen, there are a lot of people making a lot of money for her staying in the race. I've been in that spot. So the money's coming in. Nikki's, again, I like her a lot. We share a lot of common views about the world. It's just Trump's time. I mean, there's nobody like Trump. Sometimes, mostly in a good way. There's nobody like Trump. If he got to be president tomorrow, the border would be fixed in like 30 days, right? If he got to be president tomorrow, Putin would say, you know, maybe I should get out of Ukraine. Nobody can do what he's done. He comes in with a record of tremendous accomplishment. And I think Nikki is thinking somehow it won't work out for Trump. I want her to make her own decision. There's a lot of money coming in and a lot of people making a lot of money. But I hope when she does get out, and she will have to because she's going to lose her home state, and that's not a slam on her. Nobody could beat Trump in South Carolina. Jesus could beat Trump, but other than that, nobody. Nobody.
Let's talk about IVF and Alabama. You agree with Donald Trump on this. Listen to what he says about what's happening in that state.
I strongly support the availability of IVF for couples who are trying to have a precious little beautiful baby. I support it. The Republican Party should always be on the side of the miracle of life and the side of mothers and fathers and beautiful little babies.
You'd be a good translator.
What's your reaction to that?
I think he's spot on. So let me tell you, fertility clinics allow people to have children that have a hard time having children. Closing them down is really closing down life. So I respect we need some regulation about embryos. But the last time I checked, nobody was born in a freezer, right? Here's how you get to be a person, a human being. A biological woman births babies. to my Democratic friends, only a woman can have a baby. Are we all? Okay. So Trump is right to make sure that these clinics stay open. Hillary Clinton is accusing all of us of being against birth control. That tells me they've run out of things to say. Yes. Yeah. We're not against birth control. We're for life. We're for fertility clinics. We want to protect the unborn in a balanced way because we understand these are emotional issues. So when you hear the Democratic Party accuse Donald Trump and me of being against birth control, that's, again, just a desperate group of people with nothing else to talk about. Why aren't they talking about what they did for America? Because they can't. What they're doing to America is hurting us, and 80% of the people think we're going in the wrong direction. You're right, we're heading in the wrong direction. Tonight, we begin to head in the new direction, the right direction, when Trump wins South Carolina tonight.
Thank you so much. Apparently, I'm talking to a terrorist, according to Putin, right?
Yeah, so I'm the first one in my family to be a terrorist in Russia, and we're all proud.
Rachel, back to you. Thank you, Senator.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.